Yeah, we got those are topics. There's one here like writing cliche,
Ugh,
writing cliche, writing cliche.
God,
Ah,
that one just, oof. More people need to go about it the way I go about it. Not
okay.
that
And
I
that
think I'm
way
an
is
not that I think I'm an authority on it or anything. It's
Mm.
more like I feel people's hangups on cliches is fundamentally cliche in and of itself. Because the problem is everything on the planet, left, right, and center, technically speaking, has already been done. Don't mean to quote TV tropes or anything, but there really is barely anything original under the sun.
Yeah.
And whenever I encounter anyone who wants to pretend that their story is 100% wholly original, I have to call bullshit on it if I'm going to be honest. Because the
Yeah.
thing about this is your stories, your ideas, among everything else, they are influenced by some external force some way or the other. And you can't really run away from that. And if you pretend that you are being horribly disingenuous and you were shooting yourself in the foot. Because the thing is, all that really matters at the end of the day is regardless of whether or not nothing is new under the sun, here's what you can do. Just write it in a manner in which is distinctive to you. You want to see something put together in a way that you rarely see. There's no sin in that. Even if it's something that people recognize, even if it's something that you can recognize, all that really matters is it written in a manner that is compelling for what it is at that moment, at that time. Like, I find that a lot of people who obsess with subverting tropes or doing this do more harm to their writing than anything else. And I'm not just talking about the Ryan Johnson types. I'm not talking about them. They exist, but they're inherently a symptom of a much bigger problem. The assumption that you need to be able to subvert a trope to be considered a fine writer, or you gotta quote unquote play something straight. You can't think about all that stuff in the moment because you're just going to have a story that is 100% robotic at that point. You're not writing from your heart at that point. You're just trying to be, yeah, man, I did this, I didn't do this. Oh well,
You're basically you're trying to adhere to what you think everyone else wants to see. But by that point, you're right. You're not even writing. You're not even writing what's honest, like what's genuine to you. So therefore, it'll come off fake at best.
Exactly.
In most cases. Yeah. So. Yeah.
And nothing makes me more frustrated than when I see writers who scream and moan about cliches thinking that they have the silver bullet to it. I tell them the same thing every day. You don't have a silver bullet for avoiding cliche and tropes. You don't. No one does. And even if you pretend to have the full knowledge of TV tropes and you're like, check it out, man, I subverted this trope. No, please.
It's really been done. You just ain't seen it. That's
the thing is, yeah, because here's the thing: people will subvert a trope, but because no original ideas exist, instead of subverting a trope, you're just trading out one for another.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Literally that.
That's the thing. You might subvert the expectation that the normal expectation, but you're another branching path that's going to bring us to something familiar. It's why I fundamentally despise the whole, oh, this is a deconstruction of that. Well, yes, but at the same time, though, a deconstruction, quote unquote, does not necessarily completely do away with standard expected tropes. Now, you might get rid of the standard trope that you're expecting in the next sequence, but at the end of the day, you still have very recognizable patterns. And again, there is nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just a matter of whether or not you've done this in a manner where it's compelling and coherent.
Yeah, I think part of it comes from people they're really quick to they really want to quickly label something a thing, and then maybe it gets the marketing sometimes like to market a thing in a certain way. They need to find a word for it, and sometimes deconstruction of a thing. Okay, yeah, inherently it doesn't really mean it's breaking new ground necessarily. It's probably happened. It's probably been done. Mostly likely been done before. Maybe it just hasn't happened. Maybe it's ain't been as popular in your culture, in your area, the stuff you consume at the time, but it's still a trope that's happened. It's still a trope that's happened. So therefore, it's not as it's not really a deconstruction, but maybe the marketing or I don't know. Yeah, I just think it's just people want to put a label to something, and in the key That makes sense.
And even
Like-
then, even if you want to put a label on something, my question of the matter is, what exactly does that mean at that point? Like, are you doing this because are you doing this because you want to stand out amongst your peers because you managed to dodge a bullet that everybody else falls victim to, or are you doing this because you genuinely have a passion for what you're doing?
I think that's the most important question, because I think some people, they do it. Yeah, you're right. Some people, they literally do it thinking, "Oh, look, guys, I did a deconstruction." It's like, well, great, but was it good? Like, that's all that matters. But if it's just a matter of you're just trying to in terms of market, like, there'll be stories which could have many different tropes or many different genres, but it'll get labeled as like fantasy and this, because that's just how marketing works, you know. So I think if it's done in a sense where it's just happened, well, this is the best way to kind of give someone a gist of what you're trying to what's going on in this book, then that's cool. But some people do it for brownie points, so to speak. True.
The best way to actually interpret whether or not what you did works is to do what I'm pretty sure we've all told every single writer to do at this point, and be pragmatic. Taking that pragmatic viewpoint where you base the worth of an idea on whether or not it benefits the story.
Yeah.
As opposed to just saying, I did this because, I don't know, your writing will become like at least 30 times better.
Yeah.
And another thing that I should bring up, I just have so many ideas for novels, but I never actually finish them. But one idea of a novel that I came up with was about an amateur wrestler, and the entire novel would try to layer dramatic irony as much as possible. Like, there would be moments where it's essentially the audience thinking that something is going to happen, and then the author knowing that something else is going to happen. And then the audience is subverted through that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is that there are many cases where that has been proven to work. Like, that's pretty much why Attack on Titan is as popular as it is. It's because a lot of people have kind of been trained for media to expect the typical linear storytelling. Like, you expect things to work out this way, and then it doesn't. But then what ends up happening is that Isayama manages not necessarily to subvert. It's not necessarily subverting per se. It really is just playing with the circumstances that are pretty much inherent to the situation in a manner that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't remember who said it, but it's like Eren is like a shonen character in a seinen world. That kind of mindset does not play very well when it's met up with situations that actually demand practicality rather than screaming at the problem and quote unquote getting superpowers at it. You can't do that. You're going to get knocked down several times before you're able to get back up.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily, that's kind of like why I have the opinion on Isayama that I do. It's not that Isayama particularly subverted the genre that made Attack on Titan work for me. It's that he managed to play with the ideas that are inherent to this situation and actually portrays them in a manner that they're not insulting to the audience or the characters.
Yeah, because he did it in a genuine way. Like I think that's a really good way of explaining Eren's arc, because especially around the first, I always think about the first couple of seasons, he's basically a shonen protagonist in every sense, and then the world just keeps hitting him, knocking him back down, and like it happens. Like, just there, even beat for beat, even, you know, when he, I guess it was spoilers for, I guess, season 3 of Attack on Titan, if you ain't watched it, but, or even when he, fights the Armor Titan, and, like, he has this whole, like, he's getting beaten up for a second, he's having this whole speech, and he's getting more angry, and, like, in most other shonens, it'll be like, oh, that'll be the part where he's gonna get some hits in, but nah, like, Armor Titan's like, nah, mate, just still knocks him down. It's not until he starts thinking like strategically and starts bringing in like some, you know, grappling music, kind of shifts the balance. But it's like you said, it's kind of like he's like a shonen protagonist put into a seinen world, and
exactly.
Yeah. So when people say subverting, well, I mean it's just different from what they're used to, but it's using tropes and stuff which we know from other stuff, and it's just kind of like playing with them in a way that makes it come off play out differently than what you typically expect. Yeah, that's the main thing. Yeah, true.
Exactly.
But the easiest way to use what I was describing, it's supposed to be a sort of somewhat comedic work. It's kind of like
Right.
Don Quixote, I guess.
Yeah.
Classic.
And when you just layer irony upon irony upon irony, eventually your audience is going to become so disoriented they have no choice but to laugh.
Mm.
Right.
And sometimes that's the humor I go for.
I kind of feel that Parasite manages to do something quite similar to that. Like, there's a reason why it's advertised as a black comedy to most people. They're like, well, I don't really see how the situation is funny. To which I'm like, no, the situation is funny in the sense of how ironic it all turns out to be in the end. Because when you get to the scene with our main character, he sees a doctor and an inspector right in front of him, and when he sees them, he realizes that they don't look the parts that people ascribe. You know, like when you think doctor, you think of a specific person. They have to look a certain way, but he sees that they look no different than he does. He was ultimately sold by the idea that whoever these people are, they're never going to look anything like him. But when he actually sees that he actually bought that lie wholesale, and he sees it right in front of him, he can't help but laugh at it because it is funny. Hell, even the situation of his family taking over and living off these rich people who they believe are parasites, they're not much different. It's hilarious when you actually put it in context. It's
cultural irony, I guess. Is that
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Should we move on to the next topic? Let me see.
Sure.
I mean, let me see. I might do emotional characters later because like Will's not here.
That one is
Unless you, unless we
that
get like really worth coming into, because I'm not sure he's either not gonna make it or he'll be here late.
I hope he gets here so we can actually talk about it, because I have some takes on that one.
Cool. Alright, we'll hold off and see how that goes. Next one, I guess we can do how to write convincing. Yeah, let's do how to write convincing dialogue.
Oh boy, I'm gonna let someone go first on that one.
I'll go ahead and put my own thing in. So the first step is, my personal advice would be don't be realistic, because a lot of people will tell you to write realistic, but that just makes dialogue boring.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So what you should do instead is write dialogue that is much faster paced, much wittier, I guess. Especially compared to the real world. Like, if you watch any movie with a good script or read any book with good dialogue, you will notice that the characters fire back with replies much faster than in the real world.
They don't talk like real people at all. You will never have people, rarely do you have people, being snappy, talking just after each other. In the real conversations, people are talking over each other. It can be a bit of a mess. In real life, so
you're not gonna get the odds are you're not going to get a full-on you slumber a cucumber situation where the roasts gradually become so absolutely devastating that you're just amazed. Because if you've seen the whole you slumber a cucumber video, it was like so surreal because the visuals are weird, and on top of that, the dialogue is both intelligent and stupid simultaneously. It's incredible how they managed to do this.
Cool. Where's that on? Is it on YouTube or is it a movie? I'm not sure. I've never heard of it.
It's on YouTube, yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
it's from a series called Xavier Renegade Angel.
I'm gonna have to check.
And it's basically a surrealist comedy.
Okay. Yeah. It's literally like I said. It's not too far off the kind of question I was asking with when I said how writing realism. It's not too far off, but yeah, it's like you said, because when you write like real life, let's be honest, like real life is it's both complicated and a lot more boring than your typical story. So trying to capture, if you try to capture that too much, like capture essence of it, I guess. I think that's the best way to say it. Like capture like a little essence of it. But if you're trying to capture that fully, you're just gonna, not only you're gonna fail because well, there's a lot. There's just too much. There's too much variables to even like make it a cohesive story most times, and it's just most times it's just not even going to be that interesting. You know what I mean? So, no, yeah, I totally agree.
So the basic rule of thumb of writing good dialogue is to not write realistic dialogue.
Yeah, to be
and then
hold on.
I
There's
kind of have a bit of an opposite opinion on that one for the most part, but here's how I see it. I don't necessarily think the idea of realistic dialogue is a negative one in and of itself, but it really depends on what your scope of realistic is, because there are many different people out there who have particular speech patterns, a different way of expressing themselves, and kind of looking at or analyzing a situation. Now, if you were to try to base dialogue off the standard by what like people expect, like what you would find in like a Hollywood movie and such, 9 times out of 10 it is either going to come across as unnatural or not necessarily compelling. What I feel the best way to go about dialogue is to consider who that character is at the moment. Like, where have they been? Where have they come from? What have they seen? Like, what is their walk in life? Like what kind of informs their speech pattern, or what informs their ideologies? Because that has a lot of subtle effects on how characters decide to interact or speak. Now, that kind of gets into this weird debate of whether or not that can be even considered realistic, because we're dealing with a character who's likely living in a completely different world if we're dealing with like a fiction story. But I don't know if I'd really call it realistic. Not the lack thereof.
Naturalistic is the term.
I mean, when I say realistic, I mean in comparison to the actual real life. I mean, you're gonna have essence. So, obviously these characters have emotions. These emotions are gonna relate to how we are in real life, because that's how we relate to them. That's a given. What I mean is, you're not gonna have, like, for example, if the character's in a car and he's driving somewhere, you're not gonna have, I don't know, 50 billion other tangents he goes through in the day just because it's realistic. Or you're not gonna have.
You cannot do that.
Yeah, you're not gonna have. Actually, this is a good one. This is a good one. When like a character goes into a shop and they get something, you're not gonna have. You're not gonna have all the what do you call it when you just like, hey Barbara, how are you today? Not too bad, thanks. How have you been? Yeah, not too bad. Kids on the way,
the generic
hair,
bit of dialogue.
You're not gonna have all that in there,
right?
Even if it happens, you're at best on movies. They'll probably they'll cut to the bit where it's gonna show the characters and stuff in how they are, but it's in tangent with a point. It has to reach a point, and life is not as you could say it's not really hitting a clear direction as like a movie or a show, because it's got real life. You can meander around, and that's just how life is, isn't it? It's just you meander around. But in the movie's got a point to make. The movie's got to tell a story, so it's got to mix in what the character's life, but it's got to be in tangent to tell a certain story. So it's got to be there for a reason. So therefore, it has a bit more. That to cut the fat, I guess. It has some essence of realism, but it's like it's they cut the fat. If that's the best way to explain it. Yeah, that's what I feel.
Right. It is a matter of cutting the fat, finding what's natural, and just honestly speaking, overall, just managing to portray the character in a manner that is honest to who they are, as well as the circumstances. If you can at least get that much down, then more people are going to be excited to read the dialogue segments and the narration segments.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's
granted, you should always try to make sure that there's a balance between the two, but naturally speaking, there has to be a distinction made.
Yeah, I agree. You can't go too extreme in either side. And also, I think also where that balance is not only depends on like you as a person, it also depends on the kind of story you're telling, because you won't really put the same amount of, I guess, gritty detail into a comedy as you would put into like something more gritty. I can't think of it, but like, you know what I mean. So the tone on how much you turn that realism up really kind of depends on also the genre you're writing to, or what kind of tone you want to give out overall. Yeah, like even just like you look at like anime in its own genre is just it's writing this, well, not it doesn't necessarily, but like in the genre of anime, for example, it's it's just by default a little is less realistic than, say, a movie when it comes to portraying characters, because by most shows in that, in animated form, the expression of the characters are just, they are less nuanced than actual humans. So they have to use slightly different tricks to kind of show certain emotions.
Funnily
yeah.
enough, as dialogue works within most anime and such, actors are kind of encouraged to be as off the wall and zany as they would like, as most of the speech patterns that you might catch within anime, like the more over the top ones, most Japanese people don't behave like that in real life. Like if you were to actually if you actually thought they did, or rather not necessarily if you thought, but if you actually brought that pattern around them, they'd probably look at you like you were crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like it's pretty niche even on that side of the ocean, just as much as it is here. It is funny enough, as they do like the idea of just, letting loose, having fun, not really taking it too seriously, except when you have to. Granted, there are a few anime out there that are definitely a lot more grounded in how it portrays relationships and such. Like you can find that within, not to be a Nasu stan here, but if you checked out, like, I feel Heaven's Feel, Fate Zero, or even Karen no Kyokai, I'd like to think that they're pretty balanced as far as everything is concerned. Even as grounded as AOT can be here and there in its reality, you'll still have the over the top yelling and screaming, which is inherently grilled into it.
Yeah, like I said, it's just, I think it depends on like, even in each genre, it kind of depends on each medium. It depends on the genre or what the tone you're going for as well, and how much you dial it up or down. Like for example, like I said, with Heaven's like Fate's Day Night, it's compared to most anime nowadays, it's more grounded, but it's still not like it still has to use some of the tricks and stuff to express certain emotions in anime, which you won't see in real life. You won't see like I said, like you don't see, like if someone came with the same talk to the same way in anime as they did in real life, they'll be looking at you like huh? No, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Like, some noises they make sometimes just to kind of show emotion, like all that stuff. It's like you don't see that in real life, because just don't do that really. Unless you're just trying to portray anime or something. But yeah, it really depends. Yeah, I think just knowing your balance and knowing what you're kind of going for. That's the main gist of it. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, the rule of thumb that I would say is, like, the most important is know what actually works in the context of where it is, because you can have witty dialogue where every character fires back at a certain extent, but at the same time, you need to make sure that it's not extremely out of character.
Exactly.
It's kind of like how you would write lyrics.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because you could have a character in a show. One really common rule of thumb when it lyrics is, if you include a lot of alliteration in a line, then it makes your character appear smarter, so to speak. So when you have a character saying something like a gent with good intent who's content to be, it makes your character seem just that much wittier, so to speak.
Right. And I feel there is actually another example I can bring up on that subject. Like, I'm sure you've noticed that whenever you watch a lot of the MCU movies, you're going to notice that the characters all have a specific way of banting at one another. You're going to find that 9 times out of 10, a lot of the humor really comes down to banting, overly witty dialogue that you probably wouldn't see or hear in any other scene, other than the fact just to have a moment of banter.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, I kind of noticed that a lot of the MCU flicks have that thing going for it. And 9 times out of 10, it's kind of become so much of a cliche within the movies, to the point where when I hear it, I'm like, oh boy, here it is. It's that scene. Oh boy, it's that scene. It's coming.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not gonna tell you.
comes the banter.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, I'm not going to tell you that I don't find them funny when they come up, because they are funny to a degree, but when we're literally having a moment where we have Shuri going, "What are those?" or "I never freeze," then it's going to take you out of the flick. Yeah. It's going to take you out of the flick because you know what that's in reference to. Yeah. Granted. I take that on a case-by-case basis, because even though you might know what something is referencing, it's not inherently a bad idea. And this kind of came up this week with the whole sus and the Nagatoro thing. I didn't think the translation for her saying sus was particularly a problem, primarily because the Japanese that she's using in that particular scene, it's slang for suspicious behavior. So it being reinterpreted as sus when it came over here was not necessarily a problem. Now, do you know what it's in reference to? Probably.
Among Us.
Exactly. But granted, sus was around long before Among Us came out, but it's the most relevant example that you can point to.
Yeah.
But I can't really.
Yeah.
But I can't really say
now. So now you just hear the word suspicious.
Exactly.
And suddenly you just hear ding 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 ding.
Exactly. Oh my god, he gets it. He gets it. Oh my gosh, he gets it.
Yeah.
There's an entire copy pasta where there's at least 2 prominent copy pastas that are just saying, "Please, why? I am tormented. I am distraught. I see a red bean with another rectangle inside, and I just go into an episode of PTSD."
Exactly. And my thing is, it's like, listen, we get it. But the thing is, even if you might understand or find a parallel of where this dialogue may be coming from, it's not inherently bad. It really isn't. Because in the context of the moment, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It really does. And this isn't just referring to the Nagatoro scene. This just refers to anything in general that might have something similar that might make you think of this and that.
Yeah.
You just have to consider this. What's the context of the moment? What is happening right here? Does it make sense? If it does, then the dialogue is natural. It makes sense at that point. The dialogue is natural. However, if we seem to drop a, I don't know,
a whole time just to get to there, or I think I know what you mean. Like there is I had it. No, what's it like? You no, you go. I had some.
Right. It's like if you drop something in there in between that manages to kind of like more take you out of the scene. Like if you were taken out of the scene for a moment, and you decide to think about like, does this make sense in context? If you manage to come out of that situation saying that it doesn't make sense in context, then you messed up. Because it is basically the equivalent of running onto a skate park. And hold on. I had the analogy in my head. Hang on. Let me rephrase it for a minute. Okay. It's like if you were to run into a room, you make some offhanded reference to some obscure movie that took place in this particular bar. If no one understands what the hell you're talking about, you're gonna throw them off.
Yeah.
But if they do understand it, and if it does make sense in context, then all right, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's just a matter of ensuring the reader is not taken out of the moment.
Yeah, would you say that's also, that kind of happens also depending on like maybe how much you've been exposed to the same kind of maybe joke in a story? Like, because I feel like, for example, like you say, what are those? Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, yeah, I know where it comes from. But like, at the same time, in my head, I was like, I could argue, well, they technically on Earth, so technically she saw that. You technically is meant to be one of them, like little, what's up sort of girl. Anyways, I thought, yeah, although it's from our world and stuff, she's technically meant to be in our world. So I just kind of I internalized it as that, and I thought, although it took me out, it kind of put me back in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it depends. But if it kept happening a lot, or maybe depending on your mental state or how you saw things, I think it varies on how you would like.
Right. Because I know I personally wouldn't do the whole sus thing in anything I've written. There's a bunch of other things on top of that I probably would never do. But I choose to do things on a case-by-case basis. Yeah. If this works, okay, fine. I wouldn't personally do it, but if I feel that you have done it in a manner that doesn't offend doesn't really offend my sensibilities, you're cool.
Yeah,
you're fine.
It doesn't pull you out of what is meant to be important in this moment, sort of thing. I think it's really, yeah. Actually, speaking of that, it's kind of making think about, like, we could talk about, like, translations. I guess, is that in writing? Like, you know, when you like language and interpretation and like translations of writing, like for example, like obviously when you write something in one language, you got to translate it to another. You got to take some creative liberties on how you write that so it can be understood by another like audience from, like, you know, who's from a different culture or background and stuff. That could be a topic, but yeah. Alright, I guess we covered that one. Let's do the next. Let me see. I think the one we talked about, it more or less covered what I meant by, like, writing realism. So we can skip that. Talk about power creep. I just kind of threw it in there, to be honest. I have a feeling we talked about something like this before.
I definitely wasn't around for it, but power creep and so I'll be blunt as far as power creep is concerned. It's not really something that I think about too much when I'm dealing with my stuff. Granted, I have to be honest though, even though I'll tell you that it's not really something that's come up all that much, technically speaking, it is something that I do have to consider. Because as far as what I'm doing, it is a war drama. It is a mecha world war drama. And I'm definitely leaning more into the quote-unquote real robot side of things. So I don't really have any machines with too much crazy superpowers, except for one particular machine. But the thing about that particular machine is that I intentionally write it in a manner in which the more insane possibilities that you would expect from a machine of this type, you never really see it happen because the people who are actually using it do not wish to engage in that kind of violence and brutality. It's something that they can do, but one of them is a bit of a pacifist. She doesn't really like killing people if she doesn't have to. Yeah. And the other main character, well, this is something that I'm still developing, but let's just say he prefers to avoid killing as many people as possible, because if he kills anyone, he's going to be haunted by them screaming in his head for as long as he lives. So the more people he kills, the more he can still hear them whispering. So he tries to avoid that. So as far as... Oh, go on.
So it's more like the threat of that. So I guess maybe from that character point of view, it's like, oh, like there's this thing here that could destroy a lot of people, but I'm not going to do it because of this, because who I am is going against my principles. But I guess the tension comes from the other side, who probably don't know this about this person anyways, but know that they're with this big killer robot that can do this. I think that's
And it's not like I will never have moments where it will where that kind of insanity won't occur. Because I'm trying to go about it in a manner in which you might have all this power, but you need to double check something. Is it really power if you can't even control that thing? Is it is it worth saying that this is power when you can't control it? Wouldn't you say that power without control is worthless? Isn't that just brainless destruction at that point? Like, on top of that, I feel the question of power creep within within a lot of battle fantasy, not necessarily within the realm of anime, it always runs the risk of either A, breaking established rules, or kind of betraying not necessarily just established rules, but whatever logic that the audience might take away from what you had previously set up. Oh God, how do I go about this? I'm sorry. I've been burned by Battle Shonen and other things for a while, but even my brain is fried in the explanation here.
No, I think what you're saying. I think it's basically kind of what you're saying. The first point is like just they've established rules like, oh, this works like this and that works like that, but then all of a sudden, because there's new powers in here, it's like, well, but this power's in here, so therefore we have to change things, or like I think it's going back to your first point really, but yeah.
Right. It turns into a matter of, is this necessarily here for the sake of advancing a character plot or anything, or is this just here for aesthetics? Now, don't get me wrong. if something is just there for aesthetics or it's just there to be cool, that's not inherently a bad thing. But then we still run the risk of going the vapid direction. It's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Like, power creep in and of itself, it's not necessarily a bad idea. It's something that you ought to keep. It's something that you kind of ought to keep in mind, because even within Gundam, something that I do love to bits, we do have that question of power creep coming in every now and again when we start to get to things like the new Gundam, or especially the Unicorn Gundam with the weird time travel stuff that they can pull. Which I won't get into that, but all you need to know is, we went from a Gundam that can literally push a asteroid out of the Earth's gravity, out of the Earth's atmospherical pull, to the point where you literally have a Gundam that can rewrite time. Yeah, I'm serious. You have a Gundam that can rewrite time, bring something back to the basics. Yeah, that is a thing in one of the most grounded franchises in the whole Gundam metaverse. It's crazy.
Yeah. Would you say like the I guess for the example of time, because like, I was about to bring up example of Dragon Ball Z, because that's just easy to like take crap shots.
Oh yeah,
with thing. But
it's easy to take aim at DBZ.
Yeah, yeah. But I'd say with the time, in terms of the time travel in there, like did it, like whatever did it, was it used for, like, did it reach a point? Like, did it actually, like, whatever reason they brought the writers put in there, did it kind of achieve that, would you say? Or did it do it at a cost?
Right, because like my thing about powers and power creep is that, fundamentally speaking, I feel there needs to be a cost to everything. Yeah. There has to be something of a cost. There needs to be something to ground this all in there somewhere. I'm not saying that you can't go over the top. You absolutely can. But there has to be somewhere where we can actually look at the power, be able to connect it to the character, see how it affects them, among other things. Because the one thing that I liked about Avatar: The Last Airbender is that it actually managed to go about that. Yeah, like in the case of Aang, it was never really a case of Aang becoming all powerful. That was never the conversation. He was going to become all powerful no matter what happened, because he already had the Avatar state. But it was a question of, when Aang obtains that power, is he still going to be the same person? And once you get to the Guru arc of Avatar, you get to that point where Aang determines that he may need to sacrifice Katara to obtain that, to obtain the state that he needs to be in. And while he was prepared to do it, he never really managed to go all the way with it. So in the end, he was still the person that we knew him to be from start to finish. He grew up along the way, but he never really lost himself to that power per se.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I think not just that, I think with Avatar as well, it's like, it wasn't so much, oh, he gets this thing, he gets more power, like more numbers on his power level. It was he learned different. Like, he didn't just get a power. He didn't just learn a new element. He kind of learned a new way of fighting, but also he learned more. He learned more about himself as well. Like, I think I did watch a video about like, he used to run away a lot. Like, that used to be fighting style. He used to use air. He used to just, like, when he was fighting, he'll evade, he'll dip, and that stuff. And then, like, when he was training with Toph was teaching him, like, nah, sometimes you need to take these things head on. And like, I realized, like, it made me realize in the final, like, probably in other fights before, but in the final fight, like, you see literally a lot of the things he learned kind of being put in display. And I think that's another reason why it kind of works so well. Like, there's more to it than just, oh, you gain a new power and it makes you this much stronger. There is, like,
exactly, like the styles with the different elements of an Avatar are not only just a cultural reflection, but they are also a manner of adopting that culture's manner of approaching issues. Like, for example, for Earthbenders, it really is a matter of remaining rigid, never faltering, looking head on at a situation and never backing down. For Airbenders, you have a connection to the world, but at the same time, you're almost kind of flighty at the same time. You're flighty, but you're still grounded to a degree. You're still grounded in that sense of inner peace, not much inner turmoil to speak of. Yeah, you can't really reach enlightenment if you're suffering from internal turmoil. Yeah. Then there's a matter of fire, which is, funnily enough, you would simply assume that it is the element of destruction. It's easy to come away with that, but fire is capable of much more as you go along. Like, I feel Iroh represents the philosophy of what firebending really should be in that sense. It can be a calming and soothing presence in and of itself. It is capable of great destruction, but it is capable of creation. It is capable of as much beauty as it is ruin.
Yeah.
And the same can be said for all elements. Same can be said for everything.
Yeah.
I don't really lean too much into the whole people throwing star bolts and all that other crazy stuff. I don't really lean into it too much with what I try to do. But I'm not inherently against it, because I've seen when it's done well.
Yeah.
I've seen what happens when it does well. It becomes less of a who can beat who with this and that. It becomes, how does this character use what they're given? How do they use it to interact with the world they're in, and how do other people feel about it? Because at the end of the day, I feel that will stay with you a hell of a lot more. It'll stay with you a hell of a lot more than another death battle debate. Not that
true.
they aren't fun to watch, though.
No, they're definitely entertaining. It's just
Okay.
yeah.
So
once in a while.
one thing I should probably add is that my preferred method of counteracting power creep is by not having it be based on power.
Boom.
Make every single combat based on something that isn't, let's just throw an even stronger enemy at these people. No, it's going to become strategic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's why JoJo is such a good anime. It goes absurd, but they always find some way to make it to where the person who is physically weaker but mentally stronger ends up winning.
Exactly. Like,
right.
it's never really a matter of just raw power. I've always loved it when skill and the character personality comes into play. Like, JoJo is a fantastic example. I mean, it's literally the granddaddy of all this to begin with. Another one that I can think of off the top of my head is Yu Hakusho. There's a character that Kurama was put up against, and this guy is completely weak. He can't do a damn thing. He looks as weak as he is derpy, but he manages to lull Kurama into this weird sense of sympathy. Because what he tries to do is, he knows he can't beat Kurama in a contest of physical strength, so he's trying to beat him in a game of morals and conscience. And since Kurama has lived most of his life as not necessarily most of his life, but has lived a good part of his life as being a human now, he has gotten a little bit duller on the frontal side of things, if you know what I mean. When you're dealing with Kurama as a person in the here and then, he will likely empathize with you. But the thing is, that's what gets Kurama into trouble. His kindness has become a weakness in this context, and this character has taken advantage of that. And you know what? I found myself respecting this guy because I loved how he went about it. You've seen Kurama up to this point. You know, Hiei has always told you that Kurama is far more cutthroat than he is, but you never really get that impression because of how pretty gentle the guy really is. But once Kurama realized that this man was manipulating him and actually taking advantage of his kindness, Kurama basically just lets his worst instincts take over. At that point, Kurama does beat the guy in a contest of raw strength at that point. But now this is less of the fact that Kurama could have killed him with raw strength. This is more of a case of this other guy basically forced this out of him in the first. That's what this is. The side of Kurama that he usually tries to keep within him was forced out by a character who played the game excessively well. He's not strong physically. He's just a good manipulator. And it works. You tend to find a lot of these battle shonens, at least the ones that I appreciate, they're less about whether or not you can blow up an arena. It really is just how about a character goes about using an ability, interacting with another person's powers and such. It's a thrill. Like, hell, Kuwabara in and of himself starts out as a huge wimp, technically speaking. I feel he started out as a wimp, but that was never a problem for him. He's just as new to this world as Yusuke is. So when he actually manages to get a leg up on his competition, it doesn't really feel like you're watching a prodigy. It feels like you are watching an underdog adapting to a messed up situation.
Yeah.
And I find that a hell of a lot more compelling. It's like Coffee said. It's like Coffee said. It's why JoJo is as much of a cultural icon as it is.
Yeah. Like even speaking of JoJo, like as much as I like JoJo and all the battles, I remember like there was this I forgot his name in part 3, like where I think he does gambling. Like I think that was one of my favorite battles in the whole of the show, or the whole of like part 3 at least. Actually, I'll say whole of the show because I quite like part 3. I can't remember the specifics, but I don't know. Like I can't remember the specifics. It was like it's a guy he did gambling, and I think it was something to do with cards, and like JoJo made the biggest ballsy bluff like in history, and like because I think he had someone checking the cards behind him, so whenever they checked the cards, he knew what they're doing. But JoJo just put them down and pretended like gone on like he knows he won or something, and it made a guy panic so much he just passed out. And in the end, after that happened, they checked his cards. Like, that was a bad hand. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't look at my hand, man. Otherwise, I'd be sweating too. I was like, oh my god, like it's, and and then afterwards, there's Dio and that stuff in his battle. That was good and all. That was really good. But for me, I always think back to that scene because it's just like it's not even about like brute strength, and it's also in a show where it already does strategy and uses that to like in battles to get the W. That one stands out to me a lot because it was literally just they were sitting down playing a game of cards and they made it like it was so intense. It was so intense and it was really awesome. And it's kind of gone back to like the reason of like it's you don't necessarily need to have like this guy has 9,000 power level therefore he wins like those yeah. But yeah, I think that's like my top of my head. That's not one that stood out to me a lot. It's been really good. Let's see. I want to do. So I'm looking at emotionless characters. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to come. What else is there?
I wouldn't really want to go on the subject if he's not around to talk about it. I'd feel pretty bad, honestly.
I mean, I think it should be right to go over it. I think I'll leave it. I think we've got one more here we can do.
And, I feel more comfortable if you were here to talk about it, since it's his topic. It's only fair.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I think actually will. Yeah, I think there's no problem. We can do the speed writing. We kind of talked about it at the beginning already, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
Speed writing. What is speed writing?
Yeah.
Speed writing is basically when you take a topic of some sort and then try to write about it as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Well,
or in like some sort of set time. Like, for example, I could say that we start writing something right now and we have about 30 minutes to write about
X amount of words, yeah, like I don't know, 2,000 words.
A box that is actually a cardboard box on a table that's actually a bag of holding. 30 minutes to write about that. Go. I could say that. And you would go to your pen and paper and start writing out about this story about a bunch of people going after this cardboard box on some random table in like South Sudan or something, just because of a story they heard about it actually being a bag of holding to where there's infinite space.
Well, that's definitely something that that I've already dabbled in. Like, NaNoWriMo basically kind of demands that out of you. If you want to get like 50k words at the end of the month, you're going to have to speed write to a pretty large degree to get a pretty good turnout at the end of each week. Now, I feel for most writers in that sense, speed writing isn't inherently a bad idea. Not only does it really increase your productivity, but it does make it a heck of a lot easier for you to go back later on and kind of just reevaluate what you've done and just go from there. I guarantee you that the editing process will take you a heck of a lot longer anyway than writing it out if you kind of commit to that. Granted, though, I feel this is kind of where a lot of writers do fall into the trap when they're posting online. they speed write so much that they won't necessarily go back to really do much other than little basic edits here and there. They don't even realize that, wait a second, that doesn't really make much sense. This is a twist that I probably would have had a lot better if I had just taken a moment to just slow down for a second. Because the downside to speed writing is that it is speed writing. You're not really slowing down to kind of look back at what you've done. There has to be a balance somewhere. Like, I might go about getting at least 10,000 words written a day if I was crazy enough to do so, which I really am. But the next day or so, I take a day to kind of go over everything, make sure everything is consistent, make sure it ties in. But honestly speaking, the speedwriting idea, I'm not against it. It's something I've done, and it's honestly something I'd recommend more people do personally, just as long as you're not posting that on Wattpad.
Yeah, I think that's the main. I didn't actually think about that because I'm so used to just like whenever I write, I make sure I go over my edit like because I know me, I have my shortcomings. I need to make sure at least I in a good bit of them out before I'm even like okay, it's ready to go. But like in terms of just like you speed write it, but so long as you tell yourself, oh, I'm gonna properly edit this later, or even maybe speed write a good bunch, so that way by the time you get back to the other one, it's been like a week. Sometimes having a bit of like distance from the actual work can help you look at it a bit better because you know there's more time has passed since you actually last written on it, like wrote it up, so you can like probably look at it a bit more objectively instead of like, oh, I just wrote this, it was so awesome, you know what I mean? I don't know, I don't think. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, nah. I think you're right. There probably are a lot of people who just literally speed write a thing, do some light edits, and put it on. Don't do that. Honestly, like even the professional writers, some of them say it's like the writer's not really, the book's not really done until they've done at least good 2 edits on the thing. So that's not a good move. Like going straight out, like putting your work, you just speed written out there. It's not the best move. But I think in general though, speed writing is really good. Like I actually want to get back into doing some more of that because I used to have a good rhythm of writing a good. Like I didn't really check my words too much at some point, but like I would have a good. I can get probably 5 pages done in like 2 hours at one point. And nowadays, I guess maybe because I'm just studying, so I guess I'm just not being as focused. I feel like I've lost that. But I think if I do was it the I never actually said it out loud, but you know that the monthly where they do like a whole like the writing challenge. I find that helps kind of get me back into the gear because I did it once. I did it twice, and them 2 times it helped me kind of like get back into a good rhythm. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. Cool. Is there anything else you want to say about that one, or should we? Should we move on?
Not really. I'm pretty sure we've said all that we need to say.
That kind of knocks that subject right out of the park, I'd say.
Okay, cool. To be honest, the only one we got left now is emotionless characters.
Might be better to hold off on that until we can have Will next week. We can probably put that on the backlog for now.
Yeah, we'll leave it for another time. But okay, yeah, I think that's it because I got another Gus. Yeah, I got another Gus here. So yeah, I think that's it. We'll call it here. Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks for coming.
Not a problem. Well, keep me posted. I will be back more than likely next week. I definitely want to be able to talk about the emotionless character deal. Like, there's a few takes on that I'd like to hear or dish out on my own.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, that one's definitely interesting, man. Because I've got a few not the best example, but it'd just be good to like, talk about. But yeah, definitely. I'll keep you posted. All right. I'm gonna go then. All right, take care, guys.
No problem.
All right.
Take care.
See y'all.
All right, bye.